Hello, we're back. This time we've got the new Flute Consort from Spitfire Audio, the first in their woodwind British modular library range. You can see at the top of the screen here in the green. We've loaded the solo flute articulation, which basically includes legato, sustained, trills, all sorts of fluttery bits and everything you'd ever need to play in a flute. But for this demonstration, we're just looking at the legato. That's what this is all about. We've compared it now to the Berlin woodwinds, which I think was unanimously decided was the better of the three libraries we looked at yesterday. So here is Berlin woodwinds down the bottom and solo flute at the top. So let's just go straight on and have a look at what the Flute Consort sounds like. I've chosen some microphones here. We've got the close, tree and outriggers. Ambient I've left off for the moment, so that's, you can bring that right down and just turn the ambient off. But we've got a bit of close, tree and a bit of outriggers. We've got dynamic control with the foot pedal or the modulation lever, and I've reprogrammed the vibrato control to be using one of my sliders on my controller keyboard here. I'm not using the speed or the expression, but you can control these as well quite easily with a controller, a MIDI controller, or using the Cubase control system, which I use here. So let's, without any further ado, just have a little listen to what the Flute Consort sounds like. So I think you'll agree that sounds really quite pleasant. We've got good dynamic control here. If I just play a full dynamic sweep like we have with the other libraries. So you can hear there we've got a good dynamic range, and the PP actually sounds PP rather than just being F played quietly, which is very nice. This is a huge library, by the way. It's 13 gigabytes for a flute, which you might think is extreme, but they need all of those samples to make it sound as good as it does. We've got vibrato control, which is something that we had on some of the other libraries, but you'll see this vibrato control is a little bit different. I'll just demonstrate it now. I'll do a little phrase where we bring the vibrato off at the end, and then I'll play the same phrase where we bring it back on again at the end. So I think you will agree with me there that bringing the vibrato on and off is a much more natural thing in this library, and I can see that being used quite a lot, which is very good. So that's vibrato. I'm thinking we can also program vibrato to respond to aftertouch, which would be very nice, and I may have a play with that a little bit later on. So that's dynamics and vibrato. I'm not going to look at speed expression, but it means we can control the legato interval speed, so we can actually make the legato sound a little bit slower, more sloppy perhaps, and maybe a little bit more natural. So I'll just turn that right down, and we can hear what that sounds like. Okay, at extremes it's ridiculous, it makes slow playing incredibly difficult, but I can imagine that somewhere in the middle it's going to sound quite nice. I'll just try that. Yeah, you see that's very pleasant indeed. So I think I'll leave speed on maximum for this demo. So we've got dynamics, vibrato, speed and expression, and the flute sounds lovely. They've also got some clever velocity switching going on here, where we switch between a standard legato and this legato progressive. The legato progressive has a more progressive vibrato the longer. So the harder you hit the note, it takes a little while for that vibrato to come out. So that's quite a nice little thing to have as well, rather like they have in Berlin with the normal and the progressive vibrato, which is controlled using a controller. It's controlled here with velocity. Of course, you can click on this little button up here. I don't know how you click on it actually, I can't remember. I think you press Control. Yeah, you press Control, click, and here you are. You can see you activate this articulation when the velocity is between 80 and 127. It only plays with legato, and if you're not playing legato, it ignores it, which is pretty cool. So we'll leave that off. It's enabled at the moment. I don't know how you turn it off. You just click off. There we are. So that's the little articulations. You can switch there with velocity. You can do that with all the articulations. And I think in the spring they're releasing some of their older libraries with a new remodeled interface, which includes speed switching. So you can switch from staccato to staccatissimo, and vice versa by speed playing, which is phenomenal. So I look forward to seeing that. So that's the Flute Consort. We've heard the Berlin before, and we know this little tune. Little ditty I put together using the BML Sable violins and cellos from Sable Volume 1, which incidentally are recorded in exactly the same environment as the flute. So when you put them with the same microphone settings in the same environment, they actually sound quite natural. So what I'll do is I'll play the Berlin woodwinds first. So I'll solo the Berlin woodwinds. We'll have a little listen to them with this little melody, and then on the second loop we'll play the Flute Consort. And now we'll switch to the solo flute. So you can hear then in the second time through I was playing a little bit with the mix to bring a bit more close mic in and a little bit more ambient mic to try and recreate some of the room feel for the Berlin. First thing you'll notice there is that the Berlin woodwinds is a much closer flute. It's a much more intimate, up close and personal, although it is a much louder flute. It's got a bit more rasp to it. What I actually like about the Flute Consort, having played with it for only about an hour or so really, but having played with it for a bit, it just sits there and plays and it sounds lovely. You don't feel it coming out of the mix too much. It's got a huge dynamic range, so you can play with the dynamics quite nicely. So that's a demo of the Flute Consort and the Berlins together. I'll put them both together just because we did that on the previous demo. So we'll play them both together and see what that sounds like. Something you'll notice during that playback is that there's some little clicks and pops going on. And this is the 12-core 3.5 gigahertz Pentium something or other system. So it's a quick machine with lots of memory. 2 instruments loaded into Kontakt shouldn't cause clicks and pops, and you can see that the CPU meter, if you saw it up there, wasn't really doing very much. Neither was the disk indicator, and neither, if you could see it, which you couldn't, was the Cubase performance meter. So I think when you've got the Berlin woodwinds and the Spitfire audio stuff loaded in the same instance of Kontakt, you get some weirdness going on with the scripts that are running in the background. Bear in mind these instruments are playing massive amounts of scripts little bits of code in the background to get them doing what they're doing. So I suspect there's an issue there. I would certainly recommend that you'd load them into separate instances of Kontakt if you're going to use them for any compositions. Otherwise, you get these annoying noises. But they sound quite nice together. So they've got a fluty tone that sounds quite pleasant together. There's no clashing going on there. So there we are. I hope that's useful.